Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crash Chords Autographs. I, of course, am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon. And at the top of this, I, of course, want to thank my patrons, Mary, Rob, Robert, Robert, and Case. If you give at the $5 level, you can also get a shout-out on this very podcast, though I thank everyone who gives, even from $1 to $20 and anything in between or above. I really appreciate you. Just go to patreon.com/Stormageddon. I offer a bunch of really cool rewards and tiers. I'm hoping to get out some more bonus audio soon, and you don't want to miss that. That's for Patreons only. So thank you again for that. And on to this week's episode, which is with the incredible Hazel Tart. I've known Hazel for a while. We've been fast friends, and I enjoy all the work that they do. They are drag artists supreme who have a variety of acts, from Tina Belcher joining the Avengers to Tina Belcher not joining the Avengers to stuff from Steven Universe and beyond. We chat all about that and how they got into the scene. So please stay tuned and enjoy this week's episode. I was very soft-spoken until I stopped being, and so, I get it.
Yeah.
There's once this band I interviewed who were really sweet, but, all of the band members
were super soft-spoken.
mumble mouths, and I was God damn it, come on, guys.
well, because I was recording for my own podcast project over the holidays, and everyone in my family was so soft-spoken, and so I would, I'm using the Yeti... blue, and so I'm just it's between us, and so I'm just inching it closer to them, and then I'm sitting back farther, and I'm all right, let's see if we can get something.
I'm also perfectly okay to shout if the other guest is quiet. I'll always move it closer to them. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it then, because I've kind of gotten, as you know, because you're a listener, that I'm tired of the cold open.
Hell yeah, screw the cold open.
Right, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
I don't remember if this one has parental advisory or not on it. I can never remember. I think I marked them all that way because there's a sure shit chance that my co-host will curse. But anyway.
Well, let's fuck the cold open. Let's dive in fucking hot.
If you're just tuning in now, which why would you be? Because I'm probably putting the preamble in. Welcome to Autographs. My guest this week is the incredible Hazel Tart, who I first met because you stalked me on Instagram.
Yes.
After we met. Well, we had met before that. We met at a D20 show.
Yes. It's so funny because I'm one of those people who I try to actively engage with my social media in a way that tells the algorithm what I want.
Right.
And so Instagram, I think around the time when we met, Instagram started doing that thing where when you follow somebody, their stuff will show up really front loaded for the first time, and then it will gauge it based on that. And I didn't realize that yet, and so I followed you, and then it was just a flood of you, and so I was just liking everything, and I was I'm coming up like such a freaking stalker. This is great. Yes, and I still do that to this day because now I just don't care.
Well, it's funny also because I met you in drag, and then you followed me, and your Instagram name is now both, I think, in the profile, but your actual username is your Muggle name.
Right.
And so I was like, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I looked through the photos and I was
far too lazy to give Hazel her own Instagram. She has her own Facebook, and I'm like, fuck that. I just broke 1,000 followers on Instagram. I am not dividing that audience.
First of all, as someone who has 6 Facebook accounts and 4 Instagram accounts. And
it's a hell.
4 Twitter accounts. Well, now it's better because Instagram at one point you used to not
You had to log out.
You had to log out and log in, and I didn't. Back when I think Crash Chords first, because Crash Chords, I don't even use the Instagram anymore, but Crash Chords has an Instagram that's been idle. When I was still doing the music show, I was posting photos for everything, and I would have to log out, then log back in, post the photo, then log out, then log back on my other Now you can at least switch between them. But now I'm of the mind that if I don't need separate social media, I won't make it. For Facebook, I have it for everything because Facebook like just posting the episodes is fine. For Instagram, I only have ones for things that I have worth posting. Like Screen Snark doesn't have an Instagram because like, I guess I got post, like, we were taking selfies with the guests whenever we remembered, but beyond that, it's like, we're talking about movies.
But also, like, these are all elements of the, God, I sound so corporate, the quote-unquote Stormageddon brand.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
that's true.
So posting it all on Stormageddon is a good way to centralize that so that people who like your content, they can follow it and they can see the other things you're doing and they can choose to interact or not. They don't have to independently find this other thing.
Right. And also, like, when I first started podcasting, when I just had the music review show, before even autographs existed, like, I never thought I'd have more than one show, though I had the ideas in my head.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until, like, Jeff approached me about Fun and Games, and Rachel approached me about Screen Snark, and MJ approached me about Reignite. Like, they drove those.
Yeah.
And, like, because when Screen Snark was supposed to start a year before it did, and then both me and Rachel Shank just vanished in different directions because we just had no time for it.
Yeah.
And then she came back to me and was like, let's really, like, do
Let's
this
do
thing.
this, yeah.
And then fucking Jeff Moonen, like, every time I would hang out with him, our wives would go off, the Sarahs, and just talk, and we would just bullshit about video games for hours. And I think it was...
we should monetize this.
Right, and I think it was Sarah Tops just went, come on, guys, maybe just make a podcast or something.
Just do it.
Go do a thing.
So I followed you, and I started stalking you on Instagram.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
But I discovered that you were actually a drag performer. And so how long have you actually been doing drag?
Almost 5 years. Wow. Petrified and I started together.
Cool.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
We were a duo.
Previous guest of the
deal.
podcast.
Yes.
So were you on the Petrified show a lot?
The Petrified show originally was Deep Fried Tart with Hazel Tart and Petrified.
Ah.
Yes. It was a dual. It was a joint co-hosting show. And then we did that for 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was at Rock Bar, right?
Yeah. It was always at Rock Bar. And then I think it was like late in that summer, and I'm not even going to try to do the math on what year it was.
That's fine.
People
can fact check us if they want.
Yeah, it was like we had a weekly show less than a year after starting drag, which is like ridiculous. And in retrospect, like that was a choice that we made. But yeah, like I very quickly realized that I did not enjoy producing a 2-hour weekly show. It was a 2-hour show. It was a ton of work, especially with a full-time day job, and the way that Petra and I both approached drag shows where we felt like we had to pack it with content.
Right, of course.
You know, so like the set lists were dense, and it basically like we would do the show Wednesday night. We would not communicate at all on Thursday because we were just tired, and we would like, but we both had full-time day jobs. So like I would like go to work on Thursday super exhausted, just like crash Thursday night, and then Friday it was already like, all right, I need to unpack this drag suitcase. We need to start talking about what next week is. I need to get the Facebook event up. I need to do this. Like I need to like you know. So it became very much a machine where the reason I started doing drag was not there.
Right.
You know, like I felt this need to be adding new numbers, not because I was inspired to, but because
you had to fill the time.
Right. But because I had to fill the time, and you wanted to keep the audience members who show up every week entertained. You don't want to do the same numbers every week.
Right.
Yeah. So that became really apparent really quickly for me. And then I've talked about this very openly, but like that's when a lot of my mental illnesses really started to flare up that summer. Not because of Hazel, but doing a weekly show did not help at all.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, so...
Wait, you're saying that heavy stress induces
What?
and exacerbates mental illness?
What?
Yes, shocking.
Yeah. So Petra and I had a very open conversation, and we decided, we care about each other very much, but we do not want to do this show together anymore.
Right.
And so I volunteered to take a step back, and so I took some time for me, and then started doing my own stuff.
Is that when you start? So when you started drag, were you also already interested in burlesque, or did
No.
that start happening after that show?
That was because of that show. Yeah. So we came to Rock Bar. I was a Rock Bar regular, and I'd never been on a Wednesday night, and this was also shortly after White Elephant started.
Right.
And so Petra and I just showed up to White Elephant the week before we were supposed to start, just to get a vibe for it. You know, like we wanted to meet, you know, the people that we were going to be, you know, sharing a night with.
Sure, of course.
And Victor was so wonderful, and we hit it off right away. And like before we even started a weekly show, I'm pretty sure it was that very first night that we met. Victor mentioned, you know, that his DJ Tap Matt at the time was about to go out of town for like 3 months, and so he didn't know what he was going to do for sound. And so I was like, why don't we, like, I'll do it for you. Like, why not? Why not? And so I just like volunteered that. And so that was how I met Victor, and that was my intro to burlesque. And it was a really unexpectedly natural fit.
Of course, yeah.
You know, like our shows clicked really unexpectedly for two different groups of performers who are in different nightlife genres and had never met before, never even heard of each other before.
Right.
It was like within 2 weeks we're like, oh my god, yeah, best friends.
Well, also I feel like it's weird because it depends on the burlesque circle you're in, because certain burlesque circles don't touch a lot of queer nightlife.
Yes.
It's how they're designed.
Yeah.
It's the audiences they reach, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But like, it wasn't until I befriended Victor at, was it the second Nerdlesque Fest? I've been doing Nerdlesque Fest since the first year, but I was the official fest DJ the second year. The first year, I think I just did one of the shows and then attended the other. But whichever, I think it was the year I was the official DJ, Sarah Tops introduced me to Victor out of Face, and then I met him again in Face, that whole famous thing where like, oh, that was you!
Yep.
And we became fast friends, so when I started going to White Elephant and befriending all the folks who go to that, I was like, oh, there's a whole parallel universe to burlesque that I never even engaged in. And now, like, I wouldn't say I'm well-versed, but I'm fairly well-versed in drag and other stuff. And, like, I didn't even know drag kings were a thing at all until I started going to those shows.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's actually the exact same thing in the drag world, where there are parallel universes. And actually, Victor talks about this really well, the same from a burlesque lens of nightlife performers come to find themselves there in that community and in that world through different avenues, you know, and it's usually about, why are you here, you know, so like, is it because you're a dancer and you want to, and you know, and you're all about the movement and the flow? Is it because you're an actor and you love the storytelling? Is it because you're all about the look? You know, it's what first drew you into whatever medium it is, that really informs what community you click with.
Right.
And so, honestly, like, the queer, it's funny because I started very, very, like, standard classic drag.
Right.
Where it's like, you buy something off the rack, you put it on, you don't look like garbage, and you wear the same outfit the whole night, and you just like lip sync top 40, like whatever the audience wants to hear. And so like we started it as, with like Petra and I both started it as a complete lark, just because a friend of ours asked us to.
Right.
And it wasn't until I met burlesque people, and specifically White Elephant, which is a very queer burlesque, that I was like, oh, I resonate with this so much more.
Right.
And so that's why I started doing burlesque. And then because of the queer burlesque community, I ended up meeting the queer drag community, which the queer drag community and the queer burlesque community are closer connected than the queer drag community is with other parts of the drag community. Like those are very segmented.
Got it.
And there's not a lot of overlap there. So it was this weird roundabout way that I ended up where I am now, it'll be 5 years this June.
Oh, wow.
Where I kind of don't, like, I consider myself a drag burlesque performer, and I won't take my clothes off every time.
Right.
And I won't always be female presenting every time, but I will always bring you something queer and something very important to me. I never want to do a number that's just mashing my lips around to somebody else's music for 3.5 minutes.
Sure.
Like, I don't I'm never happy with a performance unless I'm adding a level to it. Like whether it's a story, whether it's the funny like way that my brain responded to a song, whatever it is. Like if I'm not adding a layer to it and augmenting the song in a certain way, I don't give a shit. I'm like, nah, sure. Like, yeah, I know every word to that Lady Gaga song. Am I going to enjoy doing it? Not really.
Not unless you're doing a duet at a wedding on someone's dance floor.
Hell yeah.
The fact that you perform so easily, it seems to me like it's easy for you to perform in the sense that when that happened, shout out to Esmeralda May and Triple J, the wedding I DJ'd that this happened at, every time I hear Poker Face now, I cannot do anything but think of
me and Leave Alone.
You and Leave Alone performing on a dance floor.
Totally unscripted.
Unscripted and awe-inspiring too. Like everyone was focused and like it was just brilliant. But like I found that it's really interesting also how people connect to the art world. Like, because for me, like I always planned to be a DJ. I like playing music. I like building playlists. And it wasn't until Betty and Raina said, hey, and Paige at the time when Paige Literati was still performing said, hey, so we want to do this basement show, but none of us are brave enough to host. Like, and you're a dude that we feel comfortable around. Will you host? We know you wanted to try.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess.
Sure.
And like, I've told many times on this podcast, hosting that first show, I don't remember any of it. I remember getting on stage, and then I remember the end of the night.
Yep.
Like the rest of it, I blackout hosted. People told me I did a great job. Noah and Connie were in the front row, as they always are, and they won't lie to me. Not usually, anyway.
Yep.
And so, but after that, I was like, well, I mean, I didn't fail. I have to try again.
Yeah.
And then it just got easier and easier to the point where now it's kind of like, yeah, sure, I'll host, whatever, I guess. I guess because also the weight's off now that I've interacted with so many people in the community. Like, I know there will at least be a handful of people in the crowd that I know.
Right.
And, like, the best part for me about being a host is if a joke doesn't land, then I introduce the performer they'd rather see anyway. Yep. Like, I can get the hell off stage.
Yep.
And that's why I don't mind workshopping bits like that.
Yeah.
Speaking to your performance, though, I know you're also a very nerdy person, very into TV and cartoons and animation and video games. When did that start bleeding into drag and burlesque? Was that from the start, or
no? Like my, if you dig deep, you can find like the first several outfits that Hazel wore in the first few numbers that she did, and they were interesting. They were choices. No, the first one was my Hermione Granger act, which is one of my most booked acts. It's like now it's tied with Yellow Diamond, but no, like Hermione Granger, like I'm a super huge Harry Potter nerd.
Books and movies?
Books primarily,
of course,
but the world in general. Yeah, and so I honestly think like it was through seeing the nerdlesque that Victor was booking,
right?
That thought would even appear in my head, and it like usually I come up with an act because I hear a song and it makes me think of a character I love, or it makes me think of something unique,
right? And
so that I have to do it, and I do a lot of mixes, you know, like I do a lot of sound editing with my stuff. But that was one of the ones where it was very opposite. Like I was at Forever 21, which I never go into. I was actually there with Petra. I never go in there. We were there in the Times Square location, and on the clearance rack there was one singular shirt. It was like a crop top T-shirt, and it had Harry, Ron, and Hermione, just like the Golden Trio. And I think it says Golden Trio. I should know. I've worn it out. And I was like, I'm buying this because it's $10. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do with it? And I was like, casual Hermione. And so I scrounged for a song for that for the longest time. And so that's always where the painstaking part of performance comes in, when I know I want to do a thing, but I haven't found the soundtrack for it yet.
So finding the song first is easier for you. If you don't have the song first, it's harder.
Yes, okay. Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
Like most of my acts, it's I heard the song first, and it immediately made me think of a character, and even if there's still like track mixing to do, it's effortless. Like
Right.
like it feels effortless, and like I'm very much a Ravenclaw, so like
I was about to ask what house you are.
very Ravenclaw. Like I love figuring out how to do things on my own. I'm so curious. I want to know how things work. I very rarely will commission somebody else to like make a wig or make a costume for me. Even if I know that they can do it 10 times better, I want to do it.
You
want
to get it done. Yeah.
I want to do it, and part of that is my immense perfectionism, which my therapist will tell you all about that. But like, yeah, so like for that Hermione act, I spent 2 months trying to find the right song.
Wow.
Because nothing fit, like nothing resonated with me.
What song did you end up going with?
Oh God, it's Selena Gomez. It's a deep cut. It's called "Tell Me Something I Don't Know."
I feel like I know that song.
I had never heard it before.
How'd you come across it?
I love Googling character fan mixes.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
a
it.
good way to do it.
I love it.
I've been doing that more lately because I DJ for a lot of themed shows for Metropolis Burlesque, and Magical Good Girl does shows.
Yeah.
Even when I'm hosting,
Yeah.
I still throw my secret sauce in the mixes.
Yeah.
And like usually I can think of stuff on my own, but when I hit a wall, I'll go, "What does the internet think?"
Like, let's see what 8tracks.com has for us. Yep, all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
and it works like, well, because certain shows, like I did a Saga show that I DJ'd for, and like I'm only sort of familiar with the comic, and I got some help from the producers, but I was like, I need to see what the internet thinks.
Yeah.
And found a bunch of stuff that way too.
Yeah. But like, I mean, like 90% of my things, like I have 2 different Tina Belcher acts, and they're both burlesque acts. Both of those, I love Bob's Burgers, and
can you
the
not?
song, right? And the song came on. I resonate with Tina Belcher on a spiritual level.
Yeah, I'm this weird mix. I feel like of Bob. And Gene.
Okay.
Because like I have, when I'm
Yes.
really excited, it's limitless. Like no one can get me down if I've hit peak excitement.
Yes.
But then also once I've hit a wall, I'm the Bob in the room. I just want to get through it. I just want it to work out. I'm trying really hard.
You are very Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also throw like maybe it's in your secret sauce, but like a little bit of marshmallow.
Yeah, I can see that. I can totally see that.
Yeah.
But so having 2 different Tina Belcher acts,
Yeah.
why do you have 2 different ones? What made you want to make 2 different acts? Is it the different music?
I didn't. Yeah. So the first one was oh, actually, now that I think about it, that first Tina Belcher act was not I heard the song first. It was for a while I performed with Cosplay Burlesque.
Of course, sure.
And they were doing this epic show. So one of the best shows I've ever been a part of or even heard of. It was for Anime Next. They did an Avengers themed show with very few to no Avengers acts. It was Oliver Swisky pre-recorded cosplaying as Coulson, and they were auditioning. They were interviewing
potential
other
Avengers
fictional characters
to be in the Avengers.
to join the Avengers.
Amazing.
And so there was like a Captain America act and like a couple other things, but then like the prompt was any fictional character that you can think of that would want to join the Avengers, and I was like, fuck. And so I was like, Tina Belcher would love to get near them butts.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was right around the time when, or shortly after, the Nicki Minaj Anaconda song came out, and I was like, "This is my moment." Yeah, and so I made this. I watched what was out at the time every single episode of Bob's Burgers, with Audacity up, ready to audio grab any sound bites, and I watched 5 seasons.
Wow.
Over the course of like 3 days.
Jesus.
Just like listening for it. And then like I went into like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I got some stuff, and I created this like really elaborate mix narrative of Agent Coulson is like on the screen, like interviews, and so I start the act with that moment in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where Eric Koenig is doing lie detector tests on all the agents. And so I use those sounds for the questions, and then Tina Belcher answers them.
Oh man, amazing.
Until he finally breaks her down, and he's like, "Why are you really here?" And then I put together. Tina says at one point, this is the biggest man cave ever, and Tina's going spelunking. I need fresh faces and fresh butts. And so basically, Tina Belcher auditions for the Avengers by writing an erotic friend fiction of an Avengers mission.
Brilliant.
And they're stuffed animals of the Avengers that she pulls out of her backpack, takes her clothes off, which I know, like, I was very hesitant about because
of course
she's an underage character.
Right.
But I always wear a very non-flattering sports bra as a training bra. Like, I never take that off. Like, always have panties on. Like, it's always for the comedy, not for the sexualization.
Right.
It's always Tina sexualizing something else.
Right.
And so in that, it's the Avengers. And then I had that act. I had the costume. It was great. Fucking loved it. And then...
When would you ever use it again?
I literally, the second time I performed it was for Victor Devon's One Shot Wonder show, because I was like, I'm never going to do this ever again. I did it just for that.
Yeah.
When the fuck is Tina Belcher going to audition for the Avengers? This is bonkers.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to Beyonce, and the song Haunted came on. Now, as Tina, I never lip sync the songs.
Right.
It's very much just Tina feeling her odes. And...
Haunted's a good one, though.
Yeah, and so Haunted came on, and I was like, oh my god, Jeff, the ghost in a box. The hottie without a body. The hottie without a body. And so I made this entire other completely off-the-wall act where Tina is on a date with Jeff in a box. And so I have a Jeff shoebox, and the box moves.
Oh, that's cool.
And I open the box, and I pull out a holographic glitter-covered planchette from a Ouija board, and then Jeff starts using my body as a Ouija board, and so I take my clothes off, and I'm wearing a brown unitard with a Ouija board on it.
Oh, amazing.
And
Brilliant.
Yes and no are on the boobs, and then instead of goodbye, it says good butt.
Nice. Well done. Did you make the leotard?
I did.
Of course you did.
I hand drew all of it. Yeah. So it, like that's how my brain works. You know. It's like I'm a nerd, and then I hear pop culture things, and I'm like, oh fuck, that's not going to get out of my head until I do that.
Yeah, I found as someone who doesn't perform and is only thinking to start dabbling with certain performance, like I hear so many songs and get ideas for acts, and like if I even happen to mention any of them on the air again, so many people are going to come after me for not doing burlesque. But like, it's hard watching all of these acts, especially the really narrative driven ones, and go, that's brilliant. What if I did something like that? Like my go-to that I'll throw out because I've said it so many times is, are you familiar with Jonathan Coulton?
Yeah.
You must be.
Yeah.
So he has a song called Re Your Brains, where it's him singing to an office mate after becoming a zombie about how he wants to eat his brains. And the idea is me as an office worker lip syncing the song with tearaway office clothes, and then other strippers in zombie makeup peeling my clothes off me while I lip sync on stage.
Yes, please do it.
And it's like, it's one of those things that's just dumb enough that I feel like it could go over really well.
Hell yeah, I love that. I love that.
But do you ever find yourself like at a burlesque show now, because your mind works that way, that you can't stop yourself from dissecting the things you see, or can you still enjoy the art that you watch?
I can still completely appreciate the art that I'm watching with burlesque. Drag is different.
Yeah.
Burlesque, I still feel like I am so inexperienced with. Like I get booked for burlesque 90% of the time that Hazel gets booked, but it feels very. I don't even know. Yeah, like when it's a drag number, I'm analyzing it almost from an acting standpoint,
right?
Because my degree was in acting and writing,
right?
Whereas with burlesque, I still am able to sit down at a burlesque show and just nerd the fuck out,
right?
Which is so wonderful.
I'm sure.
So I go to a lot more burlesque shows than I do drag shows
because of that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm curious. What was that first number that you saw me in? Because I have no idea what it was.
Oh.
It was at D20?
It was at D20. The first number I saw you do was in a really emotional number. What show was it? Oh, did you perform at the Dystopia show?
No. What? No, I knew you before this. No, was it the The Mountain Goat Show. That was a really emotional number.
So the Mountain Goat Show is one of the most memorable performances I've seen you do.
I've never done that again.
Really?
It's a very specific that was an intentional one-hit wonder.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of them were, because like even Schaefer's performance, like he never does that kind of stuff in his own show, and so like I feel like a lot of that stuff was very one-off. But no, I can't remember what I feel like I must have seen you do a lip sync thing at either Beef or at White Elephant.
Yes, I've done plenty of White Elephant.
It must have been a White Elephant, but gun to my head, I couldn't even remember what act it was. It might have been maybe it was Tina. I don't remember. I really don't remember.
Yeah,
because I knew you longer as this person that I met through the internet,
as the person stalking you on Instagram,
right? Than a performer.
I was like, DJ Daddy gets all the likes. Yes.
Now that, because I know you were taking a break for a little while, and that you're still performing, but you're not as focused on it as you were a few years back.
Yes.
Do you find yourself now looking to this current year that we're only in God, it's only February,
and yet it's the end of February already.
I know. It feels like too long and not long enough.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself looking to do more shows or wanting to book more, or are you kind of happy with the staggered pace that it's been right now?
So Hazel is or has been on a forced hiatus,
right?
And actually, that Mountain Goat show was a very vague way of me telling the world that,
right?
Because like I did that number and I was like, this is me telling the world, and I was like, it's a room of like 100 people max, and I didn't tell anyone what this was about. But so for the audience, the act that I did was a burlesque act to the Mountain Goat song "The Mess Inside," and it was specifically from the podcast I only listen to the Mountain Goats. It was a Amanda Palmer cover,
right?
/ duet, and so it started with female vocals, and then a male vocalist joined in, and so it's The Mess Inside, and it's about a relationship falling apart and not knowing and trying to find that magic again and trying to find that spark, but it's just pain,
right? And
so I performed it as the relationship between Hazel and Chris, and visually it was me de-dragging after a show, and the relationship that I have with my body. I have clinical depression, generalized anxiety, and body dysmorphia, and an eating disorder, and so drag and burlesque, while I love it as an art form and as a way into the queer community, and it's so like I have learned so much about myself, and I have found so much beauty and wonder in life through it. Mm-hmm. It had kind of hit a point where the inflow of good was very little, and the inflow of the bad triggers was very heavy.
Yeah.
And so, it turned into, like I would actively limit the amount of food I was eating for weeks leading up to a show, and it's all internalized, like perfectionistic things where, where those like offhanded comments that like that friends will say like in the dressing room of like, oh my God, you're so skinny, I hate you. Like that, like it's like, oh, ha ha ha. And then in my head, I'm like, oh, not eating looks good on me. And so it turned into this really toxic relationship where unless I was not eating and I was cinching and patting for the gods because Hazel has a very exaggerated hourglass figure, I was very uncomfortable with myself. And taking my clothes off on stage was a really big part of that influx of bad, and so I realized I was like, this self-discovery that I've been having with myself in this conversation of queerness and identity that I've been having with myself through performance has reached an impasse,
right? And
the next step of self-discovery and exploration in life that I need to do, Hazel can't be a part of.
Got it.
and Hazel is actively keeping me from doing that.
Wow.
So I stopped accepting any new gigs. I took some medical leave from work. I started therapy and started medication. And so like I finished out the gigs that I had previously agreed to. So it was like a nice trickle out.
Right.
So like the last 8 months of 2018, I think I did like 3 gigs.
Right.
And so only now I have 2 gigs that I've agreed to for 2019. And I'm really not, unless something really great comes along, I am not saying yes to anything else yet. I'm really waiting for those events to happen to feel it out.
And are you booked as Hazel for those events?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm doing the Space Rocks D20 show.
Right, of course.
I'm
Of course.
Bringing Yellow Diamond to that. And so that will be my first performance in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also performing on the Cosplay and Pride cruise that Geeks Out does for Pride Month. Last year was the first one, and I was a guest on there. Like I was just there as a audience member, guest, attendee.
That's the
as
word.
An attendee.
That's the word.
As an attendee, I was just there, and it was absolutely amazing, and I absolutely loved it. And they had drag and burlesque performers there, and so when they reached out to me last month to perform this year, I was like, I can't say no to that.
No,
I want to do it so bad. So I said yes to that. But yeah, so like I'm very much
you're feeling it out and seeing where it goes.
Yes. It's a soft return.
That's fair.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad you brought up Geeks Out because actually, like, so last year was my first FlameCon, as you know, as a listener.
Which I'm so mad that was your first one.
I know. I should have been going to them sooner.
Yes.
But I covered it as press last year, and I had a blast, and I was on a panel, which I featured as a podcast, and I interviewed some folks there. I had a blast, and like I have poor Michelle who runs their like all of their outreach.
I love her.
I love her too, but I've been annoying the crap out of her. I know it because like I get that they do mass market emails that she signs off, but everyone I've gotten now where it says don't forget to sign up and register, I've emailed going, but I did register and I haven't been confirmed for press yet, and I have submitted panels. So tell me about that part.
Tell me when you'll be reviewing.
Yeah, but I had such a good time last year. It was just so low key and low pressure, and like people came out to this queerness and Doctor Who panel that we did, which was so fun, and like so I of course had a ton of ideas this year for panels I want to do. I want to do panel focusing on queerness in video games because I don't feel like it's talked about enough, and although I talk about it on a lot of my podcasts, I think what is actually queerness and how queerness is portrayed is very different.
Yeah.
Like talking about on my Mass Effect podcast, the fact that the first game was queer because a female-looking alien and a human woman can have sex in that game.
Right.
Which means it's queer. Which is like sort of correct, but not really correct. And it's not really until the third game where, as a male character, you can have sex with a male character, or as a woman, you can have sex with a woman and like mix it up. Like that's the one that felt truly queer. Although my co-host MJ will argue to the ends of the earth that if you're into aliens, you're queer. It doesn't matter if it's a male alien because it's something other than the norm. Is expressing your queerness. Which I agree with.
Yeah.
Like, if you're into aliens, you're queer. It's just, that's it. You're done.
Well, God, I'm queer as fuck.
Yeah, right?
But no, yeah, like FlameCon is, and I can say this without hesitation, is the highlight of my year.
Yeah.
Like, unless there's like some like big life event going on, like my best friend getting married, which happened one time, and it was the same weekend as FlameCon, and it was a big thing. But like FlameCon, year after year, has been the highlight of my year because it is the intersection. Like it feels like it was made for me. You know, it is so queer, so nerdy, so artistic. You know, like I could spend the entire friggin' con just wandering around the artist alley and talking with the artists.
Yeah,
because
same.
it's artists that you don't see at any other con. You never see that level of artistic representation and diversity at any other venue.
Yeah.
And they're so mindful of keeping at bay those like mass market vendors who just like show up with a truckload of dusty pop vinyls. You know? You know, like that does not exist at FlameCon.
Yeah.
And the conversations are so open, and there is there is like no nerddom gate checking or anything like that.
None of it, yeah.
And the panel conversations are in depth and thought out and open and so I love it.
Well, and also what was really fascinating to me, having been to a lot of conventions, is that people like. A lot of conventions I've gone to, a lot of the vendors, unless you engage with them, sometimes they're very kept to themselves or they're working with talking to other people.
Right.
But walking the floor at FlameCon, everyone is reaching out. Everyone's like, hey, what's up? Or if you stop to look for a minute, or like if you ask questions, like they're happy to answer them. And like if you don't know a name that they mention in either, the porn industry or the drag industry or whatever, they're like, oh, it's so-and-so. I did this with them. They're known for this. Like, they're super kind. And also, there were so many vendors there that I had no idea would be there. Like, I have a friend named Sarah who does incredible watercolor work, and she had her own booth. She's been there every year, and she's in a poly relationship. She has a beautiful daughter, and like I love that I randomly saw her there, got to chat with her, and that people were buying her stuff.
Yeah,
because it's really awesome.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about the vendor, about the vibe of FlameCon is like when the people at the booth are engaging with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the perfume sample lady.
Right. Hey, buy my stuff.
Yeah. No, it's because they're really passionate and they're really excited and and they're really excited that they're there and they're passionate about it and they're not just trying, like, yes, they're trying to make money, but they're trying to make money with something that they're also just deeply in love with. Whether it's their art or their fandom or whatever it is. And it's so exciting. It's so exciting, and I love it every year. And I love it. It makes me so happy to think about.
It's easily become one of my favorite conventions.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to go to more because I want to not only just experience them, but I'm trying to shop around the 1,000 things I do because I can't just do one thing.
Yep. Same. Well, okay. I definitely want to talk to you about that.
What?
about doing a million different things. So, like, I'm very much a Ravenclaw and an Aquarius where I want to do everything and I want to do it all myself and I want to be able to know how to do everything.
And you don't want help and you want...
Right. And one of the biggest things that, like, I was trying to explain to my therapist, and I did it in the nerdiest way possible. I was like, I feel like the last 10 years I have been a third level druid. and it's time for me to pick my druidic circle. And in D&D, I can just look at the player's handbook and see what that means when I get to 14th level, and what that means. So like I can see the very clear-cut path when I get down there. But in the real world, and as a queer artist, it's like okay, I love doing all of these things. Like I love crafting. I love burlesque. I love drag. I love podcasting. Storytelling is what I love, and creating things is what I love. And there are so many ways that I could go about that, and there's no one way that sort of like reaches out to me like, this is your future, this is your calling. And I don't have that player's handbook, right, where I can say like, where I can come about it very intellectually and say like, well, at level 14 it'll be this versus this, which one do I want? I don't have that player's handbook for creative life. And so I feel like I have been, like in Dragon and Burlesque and everything creative that I do, I have been a level 3 druid and not investing in one particular thing because I'm afraid to shut any one door. Yeah. And I'm afraid to label myself as any one thing. Yeah. So I'm really interested, like as somebody else who does that. Did that resonate with you at all? How do you approach that?
Well, first of all, the D&D comparison I love. Also, I appreciate you asking me questions on my own show.
You're welcome.
I love that.
This is my podcast now, kids.
So it's interesting. Like, I found that community drives a lot of it. And like, I never set out to be Mr. Podcast, which amongst a specific circle, at least in New York, I'm the guy who has 1,000 podcasts, which I don't. I have 4. And I know so many people who, in the professional space, have way more. Yeah. But I think what happened is I liked podcasting. I hate writing. Mm-hmm. Like, Crash Course started out as a blog, and like, I'm so embarrassed by the early articles that are on that site. They're still there. I won't get rid of them, but like, I'm not a strong writer. I'm an okay writer, and when I'm writing about music, I can be pretty articulate and specific and like, very focused, but like I like to talk, and I'm not an improv performer, but I don't mind discussing things off the cuff.
Yeah.
Because I know how to guide a conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'll do it when I'm just hanging out with my friends and I want to talk about certain things anyway.
Yeah.
Sometimes to the detriment of others, but that's a different story. And so I never turned out expected to be the podcast guy, but when Jeff introduced me to now our mutual friend Case, who introduced me to the Certain Point of View Network, where the other podcasts I do live, they were so excited. They're old school. The guys who created it are old school radio guys. They were 2 episodes before this one that you're listening to, Ben and Addie. And they're just like, we want to just build content and like just get it all out there, all of it. And it made me realize that there was a lot of stuff I could do. It also changed once I became Stormageddon. Became Stormageddon. I mean, it's not like I'm a burlesque performer.
I became Stormageddon.
But once I started actually taking on a moniker and a DJ name and like creating a brand, as you put it, it became easier to do more because then I could just funnel it through that.
Yeah.
But I've even struggled with that recently. I went to MagFest back in January and I loved it. It was the best and most wonderful intersection of music and gaming. But I right before that, I had given up on streaming on Twitch because I was like, I don't know. Like, what if I set these schedules and then what if I don't want to do it? And I went to a really great Twitch streamer panel with a bunch of streamers who are popular, but like maybe they get, between 30 to 80 views on a specific video, they're not like bringing in thousands and thousands of views per video. And they just pretty much, when I asked about that, like, what if it feels like work? What if I don't want to stream a certain game? They went, then don't. Who gives a fuck? Like, if you just want to turn on Twitch and you're about to play a game and you're like, oh, I just want to talk, then just talk to your audience. Like, they just want to see you if they're subscribed.
Yeah.
And that made it easier, and I've been streaming more, at least once a week, sometimes more, because I realized, if people are going to tune in, great, and if not, it's me talking to myself and being a goofball that I can share later anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think you should limit yourself at doing too much, but I think you should try, if Hazel ends up not being the brand that you want to focus under, figure out what your brand as Chris is, or as another name, or as a company, and try and funnel everything through that. If you have a focus point, I feel like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But there should also be a through line. Like, if you know me and have a 10-minute conversation with me, I'm into music, video games, and movies.
Yeah.
I'm into other stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, that's the big cross-section.
Those are the big ones, yeah.
And I guess you could say burlesque now, but, like, most of the burlesque I'm really into is about movies, TV, video games, and music.
Yep.
So, like, I'm the asshole who wanted with Mary Sin to produce a Scrubs show that actually was a huge success. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But I think as long as you're really putting 100% into what you do and care, and try not to worry about what the audience, like, if the audience will be there, they'll come.
Yeah.
Like, the podcast we are currently doing right now, I have an idea of how many people listen, but I really have no idea what the outreach is. Other than I know that there are some people in New Zealand who listen, and some other places. Like, I see these small bright spots on other parts of the world.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's an English-speaking based podcast, so it's very centric on the United States. But it's something that I've always wanted to do. Before Chris Hardwick became a fuckhead, I idolized him. But like now, now I idolize people like Kevin Pollak, who's a comedian who also has done a chat show for a while. Pete Holmes, who does You Made It Weird, which actually influenced this show because over the years, the show is very textbook polished. Like, I'm great at guiding conversation, but I have specific questions.
Yeah.
And then over the years, it's been, well, let's fucking throw the cold open out the window. I'll record that separately like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And then just let the conversation guide itself. One of my favorite interview moments is that internet wonder genius, Mike Ragnetta, who used to do the Idea Channel, when he was on this show, and I mentioned I was from Staten Island, he interviewed me about Staten Island and asked, like, what was it like growing up there? What's it like there? Like, and it was really refreshing. And so, like, I realized that in modern media, the rules don't apply. For the most part, you get to make whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And now that streaming is so much more accessible and making podcasts is so much more accessible, literally make the thing.
Yeah.
The only advice I would give you is if you're going into podcasting, which I know you're working on a podcast, bank as much fucking content as you can.
Yes.
Because no matter how much you bank, you will still hit a week where you have nothing. It's got to go live in 3 days and you have to scramble to get something.
Yep.
It happens to everybody. There's no way to avoid it.
Yeah.
But
I did weekly YouTube videos for 3 years. And
okay.
I have, before Hazel, please don't look those up. That was definitely a thing where, like, I would wake up and I'd be like, fuck, I'm supposed to post a video today. damn it.
Also, if you're working in the arts, find a platform that you really love. Like, I was trying to stream on Facebook Live for a while because I thought more people would see it because it was attached to my Facebook page. But then when I figured out that Facebook is still fucking you, if you're not paying for advertising, it doesn't matter how many likes you have, nobody's seeing it.
Yep.
So I'm back to Twitch because even though it's a much smaller audience, I think my followership is 30 people, or if even. But I get 1 to 2 people tuning in and chatting with me every video I post. And it means that people are actually watching and want to engage.
Yeah.
As far as picking one thing, I feel like it's really hard.
Right? Like my worries are never that like somebody won't consume it. It's always like, I don't want to burn myself out.
Well, yeah.
Because I will so do that. I am so that person.
I mean, that's what last year was for me. I more than tripled the money I made DJing because I had like 5 weddings last year, as well as the burlesque and drag gigs, as well as, everything else that I've done, plus the day job I used to have last year. And so, like, I was really afraid I was going to do that. And I did get to that point a little bit. There were some shows that I won't mention my name because I only did a few of them. And if they're listening, I mean, it's not like it affected my performance, but I was in the booth kind of just pressing buttons. Not really into it.
Right.
And that's no fault of the show. The shows were phenomenal.
Right.
I just...
You were overextending yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
I've found that what you want to do is figure out what you're almost always excited to do, and that's the thing to keep pursuing. I loved my music show. For those who don't know who are listening, maybe through Chris/Hazel's sphere, is that I used to do a weekly album review show with 2 co-hosts where we'd review a new album every week, and it was track by track, deep dive analysis on albums from any genre. And I loved doing it, but the recording process was between 5 and 7 hours because we would get together, we would listen to the album together, we would take notes, we would discuss how we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
We'd record it.
Yep.
Then we'd have to do retakes or fix certain stuff. We might have to fix previous episodes if we had bank stuff. It just became so much work, and I hated it. Not all the time.
Yeah.
But there were times where I'd be coming home from work and knowing they're meeting me here at my apartment and like, I have to record an episode tonight.
Yeah.
None of my podcasts make me feel that way anymore.
That's awesome.
And that said, I miss deeply doing deep dives on music. This will be the second time I mention Weezer's fucking Teal album on this damn podcast because I'm baffled by it. And I really need to do like something for my Patreon where it's just me bitching about the Teal album for 20 minutes because...
Do it.
But I find that, at the end of the day, getting the content out there is easy. Getting people to pay for it is much harder.
Yeah.
And building an audience can be much harder now.
Yes.
Like when Facebook... A big thing that really showed me how Facebook, I feel like, has changed a lot is I've done the charity Extra Life multiple times, which is a gaming charity where you game for 24 hours and you... it doesn't have to be a marathon, but it's more fun when it's a marathon.
Yes, it is.
And you raise money for children's hospitals. And the second time I ever did it, I raised over $1,100 just by promoting on Facebook and sending out emails. And this time I still raised over $500, which was wonderful. And like any amount of money is worth doing it, 100, 200, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But losing more than half of what I had earned...
The first time,
which, mind you, was 4 years ago, was the last time I did it, is huge. And I think a big part of that is that social media is burying everything that's not paid advertising.
Right.
And the paid advertising...
Especially Facebook,
And the paid advertising doesn't really work either.
Right. Yeah.
And that's become the hardest thing. Like, I have a Patreon that I love, and I try not to oversaturate promotion with, but, like, I'm so thankful for anyone who's willing to pay even $1 for my fucking content, because... self-worth is a hell of a thing, and I don't think it's worth anything sometimes. But I appreciate it, but just the same, like, you can't get that information out there anymore. And nobody has money to pay for anything right now, especially our peer group in the independent arts community.
Yep.
We're passing around the same $20 at shows.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
At this point.
Yeah.
And which is great to do and great to support, but it's really hard also.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, if you're going to do a bunch of things, they have to be things that you love. And if you feel a strain from drag or burlesque, then lean into the podcasting. Lean into making costumes for people. Fucking cosplay is an insane industry.
Yep.
I'm one of those guys who, whenever I can, I say, I knew Stella Chu when, because I love Stella Chu, and she's one of my dearest friends who I never get to see because she's so awesome and so busy.
Yeah.
But, like, the stuff she makes and the stuff she gets commissioned to make versus the stuff that people make for her, and it's, like, this awesome... And she loves doing it. I feel like... if you pour yourself into a thing you're really into, it's going to be really easy to make it.
Yeah.
It's much harder to make things when you're dreading doing it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And there's no reason to do that kind of stuff anymore because it's so easy to make so many different things now.
Yeah.
And there's so much stuff out there. It was really depressing last year when early this year rather, when I was talking on my gaming podcast about how many games I played last year. I played 33 different games last year, and like maybe 10 of them are ongoing games like Overwatch or League of Legends or whatever that I've been playing many years.
Yeah.
So I really only played like 20 games last year, and like 200 games came out last year.
Right.
And that was really depressing to me. Only because I feel like I'm so out of touch with content because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
I can't watch every TV show. I can't listen to every album. I can't do everything.
Yeah.
And so that I sometimes feel like the content I'm putting out suffers for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. So I think that was a really long answer to the to the short answer of do what you love.
Do what you love, yeah.
And I think focus on a project for a period of time and then move on from there if you have to.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to do it.
And that's kind of like what I've been doing, you know, so like Hazel, the drag and burlesque performer, went on hiatus for a bit, and so now, like, I've been working on that podcast.
Do you have a window for the podcast yet?
It'll probably be in the spring at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Tell the listeners a little bit about this podcast that you're doing.
Yeah, so like this is one that I have had in my head for like 3 years, and so it took me a while to actually talk myself into taking on another project.
Right.
But essentially, the easiest way for me to describe it to podcast listeners is to say it is serial in format and conversations with people who hate me in content. But it's entirely about queer existence.
Right.
And so each season is focused on one queer individual, and it explores queer existence and the queer experience of coming out, finding yourself, the fallout from that, if any, and how your life has changed since then, by having conversations with the people who were in your life during that period.
Huh, interesting.
And so,
I love that.
Yeah, and so season 1, which is the inspiration for all of it, is me and my family.
Right.
I come from a very religious background. My stepdad's a pastor. I was kicked out when I was 17, and I was raised very under a rock. Like you could probably name all of your top favorite artists, and I'll know like maybe 2 of them. I will have heard their names, but I will not be able to identify a single song.
All right.
And so season 1 is me sitting down and having one-on-one conversations with my aunt who took me in after I was kicked out, with my grandmother who was raised in a very small town where they have very specific views about homosexuality. And plot twist, spoiler alert, the season finale is a conversation with my mother in the home that I grew up in. And the whole point of it is I never want it to be a debate.
Right.
We're not trying to prove each other wrong. We're not trying to make the other one look stupid.
It's just a conversation about what happened.
It's 2 humans sitting down and saying we share X number of years coexisting,
right,
or our paths have crossed X amount of times. These were our experiences from my perspective, and how our relationship and our interactions impacted me and changed my life. How did my existence change you? And how did me, as a queer person coming out and claiming a certain space that did not exist before in a religious household, how did that impact you? And how have we changed each other's lives by existing and by continually striving to be ourselves, our authentic selves.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's a very rewarding set of conversations that I had, and I still have a few more to record. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like they're very rewarding. They're very emotionally exhausting, and at the end of it all, it's nothing's changed.
Right.
Like again, we're not having a debate. We're not trying to change each other's minds.
Right.
And, you know, like my family feels a certain way about homosexuality, and it's hard when it's that. When it's queer, it's hard because they don't have to take responsibility for that belief.
Right.
They can say, you know, like, oh, it's, you know, God said that.
Right.
You know, so
it's not me, it's God.
Not me, it's God. Like, change God's mind. You know, it's like, short of me getting God to come down from heaven and being and like posting like a viral video and being like, yo, shut up, queers are cool. Yeah. Stop being a dick. Like there's no changing that.
Right.
And so a lot of the conversation turned into how do we continue to exist together?
Right.
And so that's season 1. I
think that's a beautiful message.
Yeah. And so like in future seasons, like season 1, it's me, and I have my best friend Anna as a sounding board. Like we have pre-conversations and post-conversations about it. In future seasons, I'm hoping to have, you know, it's like season 2, I would love to have a queer person with a completely different experience.
Right.
And I will be that sounding board for them in the future. Cool. But it felt what's the word I'm looking for? It felt dangerous to ask somebody to explore their story
without exploring yours first.
Right. I was like, the trial and error of making this a podcast needs to be on me first. And since they were the inspiration for the whole idea, let's do that. So yeah, so it's definitely not like it'll be very anthology in focus, you know. So season 1 will come out. Will start coming out in late spring.
What's the name of the show?
I don't have a name yet.
Okay, no worries. Then I will direct people to it when you have a name.
And just like when the song comes first in a drag performance or a burlesque performance, is so much easier.
Yeah.
I usually come up with like the name for something almost immediately, and when I don't, it stresses me to fuck out.
Sure, you want it to be perfect.
Yeah, because like that's the culmination of an entire season into a name, and so it's so much easier to frame it when you're creating it. If you have that name, it's kind of like your anchor for when you're editing and when you're having these conversations or when you're making decisions about what story you're telling.
Right.
You can go back to the title as your anchor, and I don't have that yet, so it's still very like flux. But like, you know, but I have 6 conversations recorded, and each one is like 3 hours long.
All right.
So I'm gonna have to edit that down a lot. But yeah. So
well,
that's what I've been working on.
Then as we wrap up, why don't you tell the listeners where they can find you on the internet so you can tell them when this thing is
ready? Hell yeah. So you can find me, if you search Hazel Tart, basically anywhere you'll find me. Hazel Tart has a dedicated Facebook page. I'm really not active on a lot of social media other than Instagram.
Okay.
So if you search Hazel Tart, it comes up. If you want the exact handle, it's Christopher. That's crease like in a piece of paper, toe like on your foot, and fur like on a bear, but with an extra R, because Christopher with one R was already taken. And that's actually that was my YouTube channel, so like that's where that comes from. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like I as a creative entity nowadays, I go by Hazel in everything creative, just because that was a very intentional persona that I created, and it feels the most authentic way of presenting my art to the world.
All right.
So,
well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Before we call it quits...
Do I get to do it?
You get to do the sign-off.
Yes!
Yes. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. I really am a fan of your work, and also, more importantly, I'm a fan of your friendship.
Thank you. I'm a fan of your friendship.
I appreciate everything that you're doing in the queer scene. I feel like I've learned a lot from you just observing you out in the wilds, and so I appreciate that. But yes, please, since I don't have to explain it, just sign us off. This. Wrap up this
the only
episode.
Reason I said yes. All right, here we go. Music is life, and life is good.
That's it for this episode of Crash Chords Autographs. Our theme music is by Michael Kill. Our logo was designed by Case Aiken and Joey Amons. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes and Facebook. You'll help us reach more listeners. Questions, comments, or guest recommendations? Email matt.storm@crashchords.com or hit us up on Twitter @CrashChordsWeb. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Victor Devon, and I am the host of We Burlesque, the podcast. Every Monday, I talk to fabulous denizens of nightlife, including burlesque performers, both seasoned and new to the form, drag performers, performance artists, DJs, and artists who make up their respective scenes. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Please visit weburlesque.com to check out episode recaps and see all the formats available. And remember that music is life. Life is good.